One amongst you is closer to the light.
Michael, you are the first, but others will soon follow in your footsteps. Help guide them. This is just the beginning.
Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Russell,
And this is Mike.
and welcome to episode 10 of the My Haunt Life podcast.
What you just heard was an MP3 from the Tension Experience. You'll hear the whole thing in detail a little later, but yes, that is my name, and they are saying that I am ready to be anointed, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and exactly what does that mean, Mike?
I have no idea. Maybe it means I get a cool robe or something, and I really don't know, but I'm supposed to be guiding all of you and make you follow in my footsteps to the light.
So does this mean I have to follow you now?
You always do.
Well, actually, that's kind of true. Yes, so let's talk about the Tension Experience. Numerous things have happened very, very quickly in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, since our last podcast, there's been a ton of stuff going on. And some of those things, if you blink, you'll miss it. So those of you that have work and actually do work at your job, like Russell,
Yeah.
you sort of miss out on things.
So I find it humorous and slightly frustrating sometimes that all of this seems to happen during work hours, and it never fails. I'm about to have people walk into my office and have some sort of meeting, and I always get this text from Mike of, "Oh, check this out." I'm like, what? I don't have time.
But actually, it's funny you mentioned that because it seems lately things have been happening a little closer to the end of the day. So between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, that's when things have started to happen, whether it be pictures posted or messages or a hack of the website.
Yes.
We'll get to that. But since our last podcast, we've gotten together with other people involved with the Tension Experience and had kind of a fan meetup just to kind of nerd out, talk about theories and things like that. And what's really interesting is the day before, Gatekeeper went to the forums and said that one of the people going was not to be trusted. It wasn't they aren't who they said they were.
And just for those of you listening who aren't quite experienced, the Tension Experience is a sort of environmental event which you kind of follow and get involved in a forum to discuss clues and puzzles and riddles and things that are going on. And Gatekeeper is one of the voices from the Tension Experience that is active in the forums.
Actually, I guess we should specifically call him Gatekeeper 5 because he said his goodbye, and now Gatekeeper 4 is going to be coming.
Oh,
so
that is true.
if we say Gatekeeper, that could mean any one of them.
So, yes, we got to know a character named Gatekeeper 5.
Character, he's real, man.
Okay, all right, he's real. He's real.
So Gatekeeper 5 told us that one of the people going to the meetup was not who they seemed. And it's really funny how that makes people turn against one another so quick. It was very Reservoir Dogs-like. And so when we were there, anytime anyone would go to the bathroom, like, okay, what do you think? Was it him? Was it her? What do you what about them? Like, did you notice when you said this, he blinked? Like, what does that mean? Things like that, like getting super, super into it. And
yeah, the funniest part for me was when literally someone theorized because the direction one person was sitting with their chair meant that they must have been the imposter, the intruder among us. And I pointed out, like, there's a whole bunch of us sitting around a table that was designed to seat 4 people, and we've got more than double that. And the reason their chair was facing that way is because literally she was standing on my foot when she first got here. So yeah, it was actually very humorous as to how that conversation unfolded.
we still don't know who that person was. A lot of people have their own thoughts about it, but it is one of these people. And I want to give shout outs to these people just because they're kind of our little crew of nerding out in person. So Michael, David, Debbie, Neil, Andrew, Lauren, Russell, Susie and her husband, and me, and by default, Sean, which happy birthday, Sean. Sean's birthday was yesterday. I mentioned him in the last podcast he was one of the first people I started talking to about this. So happy birthday, man. And one of those people is not who they say. So who do you think it is? And I know that's really easy for you to pick since you probably are listening to this saying, I have no idea who any of these people are. But it's okay. Just pick one.
We're going to be nerding out a bit here at the top of the podcast.
Oh yeah, it's so fun though.
So-
And so much has happened, and like we each have gotten some stuff like
Yes.
since the last podcast.
So, and speaking of which, let's follow up after the meeting.
Well, the week after the meeting, people started getting calls from the OOA and the Omega Council. The Omega Council is a place that you call, and there's an actual phone number, and you can leave a message for people that you feel are what they call betrayers of truth. So you can call that number, and for example, if I thought Russell was a betrayer, I could call that number and say, hey, I think Russell Eaton is a betrayer of truth. He said this and did this. And then he might be dealt with accordingly, or maybe they would come back at me and be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you're the one who's the betrayer.
Right, which we actually received that instruction to report betrayers of truth in a newsletter which they had sent out. And I, in the last podcast, discussed my meeting with a young woman named Jenna. And I actually called to report Jenna to see if there would be a reaction. And there was a definite reaction, not necessarily to my specific phone call, but on Facebook, they called Jenna out in reaction to someone else also reporting her. And I don't know how to put this nicely, but they basically said that she would be dealt with extreme prejudice.
Yeah.
So, and we don't know exactly what that means. And I actually followed up later with a message of like, hey, did anyone ever get confirmation or hear from Jenna ever again? And no one seemed to ever hear from Jenna again.
So we don't know if Jenna is even alive anymore, because one of the people that was at the meetup, Andrew, they posted his phone call to the Omega Council on their Facebook. So there's a video on their Facebook, and you can go to and you can hear Andrew calling her out, because Andrew had a similar experience to you, where he met up with Jenna in the park. And
well, it's interesting because I said in the earlier podcast when we were talking about this that to me that meeting didn't quite make sense. Actually, now, the deeper we're getting into this, I think it does make much more sense of the fact that she needed to plant those seeds of doubt with multiple people to prove that she is, a betrayer of truth is how they label her, and her actions, define her as that. So I actually, now looking back on it, I think that meeting in the park was literally the planting of the seeds for this whole thing to unravel in front of us publicly.
And I remember you saying something on the last podcast that contradicts something that you said to me yesterday. Why don't you go ahead and explain that?
Is this about paranoia?
Yep.
Okay, but they didn't instill the paranoia. You instilled the paranoia.
But I am a part of it. You are a part of it.
So, no, going back, as Mike mentioned, we both have received either private messages or specific things directed at us. On April 10th, on the Facebook page, a photo of me appeared with some letters and some numbers above my photo. It had been doctored a little bit, almost to look like 35 millimeter film. And it was a picture that had been taken of me during the very first initial consultation that I had in person with this gentleman who was asking me some very pointed questions. And that photo, we deciphered sort of a puzzle, we feel, that led us to a picture of a flower. And we still aren't clear as to what the purpose of that, or if that is going to be significant later on. We're still nerding out and discussing that among ourselves as to what that photo meant. But that happened on April 10th. And on April 11th, I got a private email, which it was from the OOA Institute. And very specifically, it states that a relationship in my life, a friendship in my life, it may have history to it, it may have weight and significance in my life, but they want me to know that they are affecting that relationship and may be in control of it. And I am actually nervous saying all of this.
You should be. They're listening.
I'm really tempted to edit this out of the podcast.
No,
but
don't edit it.
I won't. But it's like, I said last time that paranoia doesn't get to me, but I found that even though that email, my first reaction was, okay, this is so vague, like this doesn't really mean anything, except I immediately realized that there are a couple people in my life who are involved in the tension experience that fits the description that they gave, even though it's a vague description. So I'm applying it to my relationships with people who are involved in the tension experience and playing through all the puzzles and the games and the riddles. So earlier on the day of April 11th, before I'd received this email, the Omega Council had posted a photo on Facebook that said, "We are the consequence for the betrayers of truth. If someone has reported that there will be actions, there will be repercussions of that." And so Mike had texted me about what was going on the website, and I had texted him back that, I received this private email. And then we later talked on the phone, and Mike said, isn't it interesting that they're talking about repercussions if you go against them or anything like that, and then you receive this personal email saying something's being affected. Isn't it interesting that that happened an hour after the original post? And in my head, I immediately went to, wait a minute, I never told you what time I received that email.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And for a moment, there was this moment of paranoia of like, wait, I didn't mention when I received the email. How did you know that I received the email after the post happened on Facebook? And like, oh my gosh, you're in on it, Mike. And then I realized, because you pointed out, like, Russell, you texted me that you had received an email, and I assumed that it was after the post based on the timestamp of the text. So literally, I nerded and freaked myself out in paranoia, not because of what the tension experience had done, but because I read too much into your text when you said, isn't it interesting that you got this email at a certain time? And I went to, wait, how do you know? So,
and you know all those reviews we do when we say we don't escape rooms? That's the thinking that makes that happen.
I sometimes chase my own tail.
And he really does have a tail.
Oh, thank you.
You can't see it because we're a podcast, but...
That was between you and me.
Oh, it's shaking. It's wagging.
So that happened with me, which I admit, all of the stuff that's happened recently, because it's escalated a bit, and I find the story more and more intriguing as it goes on, I'm starting to have much more fun with this. Than when it first began, and it was all about just paranoia, and it was, it wasn't gelling and making sense to me at first in any way. But now I'm starting to like, okay, you know what? This is actually kind of cool, and they're giving me enough information where I can apply this to the relationships and the friendships I have, and the fact that they did plant the seed that one person at that meeting may not be who they seem. So I am looking at all those people at that meeting going, that's interesting. What are they saying? What are they doing? I ran into one of those people at an event yesterday, and all right, I have to give a shout out to Andrew,
of course,
from that group, because I'm standing at, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, I was standing at an event called Monster Palooza, and I'm standing there talking to my friend Jennifer, who works with Evil Twin Studios as I do, and suddenly I hear this voice behind me go, "Glory be."
That's awesome.
Which glory be is sort of this catchphrase, sign-off, salutation among people who are following the tension experience. And so I'm standing there at Monster Palooza, and suddenly somebody in a very earthy whisper comes up behind me and whispers that in my ear, and I turn around and it's Andrew. And I jokingly say, I have a couple flyers for tension experience because I know I want to give some of those to people I know I'm going to see at Monster Palooza today. And he's carrying his daughter is so cute. So he was carrying her, and he was like, dude, open the flap of my backpack. And I opened the flap of his backpack, and it has the same flyers that I printed up for tension experience. And he was like, yeah, there's a few people that I'm going to give them to as well.
Nice.
So, because I knew at Monster Palooza I was going to run into people that like, hey, I don't know if you're into this yet, but here, like, check this out. So Andrew and I kind of geeked out a couple minutes about that.
But we should mention why there were flyers involved.
Well, because there was a sort of open letter sent to us and published on Facebook that basically said that we were supposed to lead others to the path toward light, which it's interesting because, like, if they want us to recruit, we don't know what we're recruiting for. So that's a bit of a dilemma, and I'm not comfortable going out and saying, hey, follow me to, I have no idea where. But I knew at Monsterpalooza that I was going to run into people I knew. So I had the flyers with me just to like, hey, I think you'd be into this too. And I did that. I handed them out to a couple people. But we were asked to bring other people along with us and show other people that the Tension Experience is offering something very, very cool.
And one of the other things that has gone on is they also posted a picture of our friend Tal, and with a caption that says, consultations begin again soon, or something along those lines.
Right.
So sounds like there's going to be consultations happening again. With that being said, if you haven't signed up yet to go back to with the whole recruiting thing, you should sign up. The consultations are probably only happening in LA, but we've said this before, if you're not in LA, it doesn't matter. We're having fun on the forums and on Facebook. There's people in New York that we're communicating with that are in on all the puzzles, and people in San Diego, and there's people outside of LA that are really into this. So get involved, and it's super fun. We still have a little bit to talk about, and you'll understand why I'm saying this in a second and why everyone is involved, because a lot of what's happening is only online. One of the other things that happened was there was a video that was posted, and when you watch the video, there are really quick flashes of things. You could see that there was something in there, and because I'm me and because I'm love to nerd out about this sort of thing, I went frame by frame on this video to see all the hidden things.
And the funny thing is as you were doing that, I was doing the same thing, and we just didn't know that each of us were doing it.
And there's so many cool hidden things in there. There's messages to us. There's messages to the Sentinel, which we will talk about in a second. But the main thing I wanted to talk about with this video is to you, Russell, because you're an editor. What is your editor thoughts on that video?
I freaking loved it. It's fascinating because there's so many flash frames of different quick images in it that I actually watched it. I said I watched it about 5 times in a row, and it really does have an effect on you. I find the use of animal imagery really interesting. Are they calling us sheep? By claiming or using images of sheep? Have we not found the way yet? I mean, what exactly are they trying to say to us? Is it a compliment or is it an insult? I really enjoyed the video. I thought it was really cleverly done, and I immediately had the same reaction you did, like, oh, there's so much going by so fast. And including phrases like the OOA Institute is now open. Like, that seems to me like a declaration of some kind of them of acknowledging, like, okay, we are here and this is really beginning. I know you've documented numerous hidden little, like, one frame images and sentences.
One of the messages that we found in that video was a really quick glimpse of, it looked like a concrete wall, and there was a message maybe put there in blood. Whatever it is, the ink is red. The message reads, "Sentinel, count the days, they are numbered." Now, you might be wondering who the Sentinel is, or who Sentinel is. We still don't know. We do know is that Sentinel and Brothers or Brotherhood of Seraph took responsibility for the hack of the Tension Facebook page, the website, and the Instagram.
Which I thought was one of the most interesting story point things to happen so far. And what Mike is referring to is that suddenly one afternoon, the Facebook page seemed to go down, the website seemed to go down, and there was a message. And the message basically read, "You OOA are frauds and liars. Your so-called ascension is no more than a cheap parlor trick. You prey on the weak in hopes of gaining their strength. We know all, and we will expose all. Sentinel." So that was a huge major plot point, that suddenly that there was someone against the OOA, which is the group that we've been focusing on when playing through all of the Tension Experience puzzles and riddles and everything.
Earlier I said you need to pay attention. The hack lasted about an hour. So if you missed that hour, all you heard were people being like, "Oh my God, who's the Brotherhood, and who's this, and who's Sentinel," and things like that. And the cool thing is there's always little nods, I guess, in their source code. So when that hack happened in the source code, there was a message from Sentinel, and it was said in Leet, and it basically said, "Look here, bahaha, pwned by Sentinel crew." So they put little messages in the website that basically said, "Haha, we took this over." On the Facebook, they called out Alistair Gordon, who I have never spoken to, but I know other people have had some correspondence with him on Facebook. They called him out as being the puppet master, and that his real name was Ellis. And basically, they just changed the profile picture. Was great. They changed it to a guy flipping you off like one of those cartoons. That was just hilarious. But once again, this happened in the span of an hour. So unless you were paying attention or someone told you about it and you were able to get there, you missed it.
Oh, and Mike, by the way, define what language that message was left in?
Leet.
So, for those of us who was completely unfamiliar with that.
For those of us, or for those I am?
I'm sure we have some listeners who may not know what that language is.
I don't know.
Mike is definitely more of a computer nerd than I am.
Another thing that Sentinel posted on their Facebook was, "Do not believe OOA. They are leading you to the darkness, not taking you from it. We now control their website and all accounts. We will expose them for what they really are, a dangerous virus." So exactly what Russell said, you have this person coming in and now there's a conflict. Before, you just had all of us going towards the light with the OOA, trying to follow our path, and that was the only game in town. But now there's another person that wants to destroy the OOA. So if you are not following the OOA and you become a betrayer of truth, you might end up with the Sentinel and the Brotherhood of Serath.
Which is really interesting to see if that's what this is going to develop into.
Yeah, is there going to be like a gang war?
It's a turf war.
It might be.
It's a turf war for our souls.
What side are you picking?
So I am remaining vague and mysterious for now. But hey, as I've said before, the OOA has never done anything to mislead me or misguide me. I mean, they've certainly been very mysterious and even slightly creepy at one point toward me. But
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about this, and it's like, okay, Brotherhood and Sentinel, you say that they're no good, but you're not backing it up.
Oh, they offered nothing.
Yeah, and for the last two and a half months, the OOA has offered me a visit. Like, I mean, they had us do consultations. We got to visit the OOA, basically.
Yeah.
You know, they have sent us emails. They have called us. They have offered us a path out of the darkness. They have offered us stuff. Mm-hmm. They're not just there talking like, yeah, just do this, it'll be cool. You know, there was actually something physical behind it. They have told us things. They have told us things about ourselves that we didn't think we knew. And then Sentinel comes in and is like, "No, don't do it. It's not cool. They're bad people." It's like, okay, where's your proof?
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting to see what the next step of Sentinel and Brothers is.
And you're saying that they're bad. You're the one hacking their website, which, by the way, Sentinel, that's illegal. So I'm just saying, Sentinel, if you're going to denounce the organization, back it up.
So yeah, that's to me the most interesting thing so far is this introduction of this attack, which to me seems unfounded, and then call us out as somehow being led blindly. It's going to be interesting to see what the next piece of information from that side is. And I'm actually really, really looking forward to see what they do next.
So just when you think things can't get any cooler and better, they do. Our friend Melissa, who I mentioned before, she's one of our escape room buddies and usually the brains and helps us escape. She is in this. Sorry, Melissa, I got you hooked. And one of the things the OOA always said is what you give, you get back kind of thing. Rewards are there. You just have to come and grab them and get them by doing things, by recruiting, things like that. So what she did, she made a cool little picture and basically gave the website and said, follow the light and things like that. And she posted it on Facebook. Tension loved it. And the next day, she received a gift. And that gift was in the form of an MP3. And she is letting us play that for you right now. We're only going to play the first part because the second part of it has some personal information about her. So we're not going to share that. This is what she received in her email.
Your actions spreading the truth have pleased us. Be rewarded in the glory of the light. Find a quiet place, find your center, and now prepare.
That's just so cool. Imagine just getting that in your email after posting a picture. That's awesome. It's just something extra that didn't need to be done, but they did it. And that just makes the experience that much cooler, and I think it hooks people that much more in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there's more MP3s.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that right now. So we're recording this on a Sunday, and last Wednesday, Gatekeeper 5 posted a message on the forums and also on the Facebook page. And the letter basically said he can take us no further and that he was leaving to receive his ultimate reward. And he also said that this is the ending of his journey and merely another stepping stone for us. And we were going to now be guided by Gatekeeper 4. So Gatekeeper 5, in his letter, saying goodbye, left us another message. And if you followed along with all the other puzzles, you realized really quick that there was a puzzle to be solved in his letter. Once you solved the puzzle, it directed you to another part of the site that I believe it said something like Light 42116, which was the next day. So the next day comes, all morning, all of us are hitting F5, waiting for it to refresh, and it finally does in the afternoon, and an MP3 appears, and it just says listen. So you listen to the MP3, and what it is basically everything is backwards. So you listen to it and you hear, and
I enjoyed that.
and so it's like, okay, this MP3 is backwards. What's the next logical step? Obviously, there's a message there. You have to reverse it. So what we did is we downloaded the MP3, ran it through reversing software, and then listened to it. And then, holy effing crap. I'm not, here, just listen to it. This is the MP3. It's reversed. Listen to it.
Apostles of the beginning, learn from his victory.
You were ready to crucify your own because their reality differed from yours. We planted seeds of doubt, and you let it blossom into a forest.
We have learned many things. The gatekeeper
Showed us that reality is malleable.
Is your reality the truth today? Glory be. We gather here because we Church of Anarchist. Be protected. Praise the light.
One amongst you is closer to the light.
Michael Fontaine, for spreading the light and for helping those who struggle in the dark. Step forward and be anointed.
He used his voice to spread our message. He remained vigilant and open-minded even when presented with conflicting information.
Michael, you are the first, but others will soon follow in your footsteps. Help guide them. This is just the beginning. Glory be.
So imagine me sitting there, all of a sudden hearing my name, and I had to listen to that probably about 10 times before it finally sunk in. It was like, no, there's no way that they just called me out. There's no way. And then the more and more I listened, I was like, yeah, that's my name. Like I can't find any other excuse. I felt like I was kind of like ghost hunting and like listening to EVPs. Like, I really want it to be my name, but is it really? Like, I mean, it's pretty clear. And then I had verification from other people be like, dude, they just called you out.
Oh, yeah. Immediately, I think you probably received texts from all of us.
Yeah. So I am to be anointed. And like I said earlier, I'm not sure what that means and what that does for my path, but it's freaking awesome. I mean, exactly what I just said about Melissa, you know, just such a cool gift that she got in an MP3. And then here's this, like they made a recording and saying I'm the first. And it's incredible to me.
Oh man, I was so excited for you when I heard that. So, and it was very funny because, again, this happened while I was at work, and literally I was supposed to be in a meeting. So I was very lucky in the fact that the meeting ended up getting delayed moments before. So I immediately hopped on, and the original computer that I heard it on, I couldn't utilize to reverse it. So I'm frantically scurrying around work trying to get it worked out. And then when I heard it, man, I was so excited for you. I was just so happy that happened. So congratulations on whatever it is.
Thank you. Yeah, like I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I'm probably gonna give him a call this week and be like, hey, I'm supposed to be anointed. Do I go somewhere? Like, what's going on? But I don't know. But
I think you'll probably receive an engraved invitation or something. Probably
engraved on a human skull. Yes.
Oh God, you would love that.
I know. But with all of that being said, this also scares the crap out of me. This makes me a target. You know, if this,
you mean of the Sentinel?
Of a lot of people. I mean, if the Sentinel is there and he's hacking websites saying that they're not good people, and he called out Alistair on Facebook, now I'm the first to be anointed. Does that make me on his list?
It might.
You know, I mean, when I met with the private investigator, he said that if he finds that I'm with them, he's going to make my life a living hell, like they made his life a living hell. Mm-hmm. So is he going to make a return and mess me up? Like, you know, like you talked about the paranoia earlier. I mean, this has got me a little bit paranoid now because I keep thinking, I mean, here's the thing. The OOA has our addresses. We filled it out from the questionnaire.
That's true.
So every time if I'm home and I hear a car driving slowly by, it's like, oh my God, is there someone there? Is that from the OOA or is that, you know, the Sentinel? Although I think I read something that the OOA said the Sentinel didn't get any of our personal information. Oh. So that's good. But, you know, what's next on my path?
Oh, it's very interesting. And I totally understand where you're coming from. It's going to be very interesting to see how this manifests itself. And I think it probably will in some form. So, you know, just keep me posted.
I will guide you, Russell.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to your guidance, sir. Absolutely. Seriously, I was so excited when I heard that thing. And I was like, I'm really looking forward to this unfolding even more.
Just remember the last time you asked for my guidance, I made you watch August Underground.
That's true. Jeez. So, and I still haven't recovered from that. So Google it, people, if you don't know. Or maybe you shouldn't.
So that's our update with the Tension Experience. Once again, you do not have to live in LA to join in all the fun. Join the forums, talk to us. We're awesome. We're fun. We talk to everybody. I'm on there. My name is Mike. Russell's on there as R. Eaton. His name is Rusty, also on there. And then we just have a really good group of people contributing and nerding out and talking about things. There's meetups planned. There's lots of things going on. So it doesn't have to be an online only experience. Even if you're not in LA and there's a bunch of people near you that are into this, you can still do it.
It would be interesting to see if people from other states became more of a presence, either on Instagram, shouting out to them or whatever. It would be interesting to see what reaction they get.
So if you want to take part in the Tension Experience, you can find them on the web at thetensionexperience.com, Facebook, The Tension Experience, Instagram, _tension_experience, and on Twitter, _tension_exp. One thing I wanted to mention, last year I had started something called the Lost Tears of Cali. It started off really, really cool. It was going to be an ARG designed by someone to lead up to their wedding, I believe. I think it was something along the lines of they had a lot of friends and family out of state, and this was a way for them to stay involved with what was happening with their wedding. It started off with a bang. It was really cool. Based in Los Angeles, they had an event or two, and they had a website, and you could find clues. It was a pretty cool ARG that it was turning into.
And they began with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There were many postings, newspaper articles, things to follow up on. They began with a lot of information being thrown out very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And they started a group on Facebook to talk about it, and whenever the creators were there, they would speak in character. It was really, really cool. And then they had things that you could buy. For example, if you wanted to be a detective, you would get extra clues and you would get some cool things. And they said every month you'll get a package. And so I had bought that because like, this is really cool. And the first package came, and it came with an ID and a magnifying glass and some extra clues that related to the story that no one else would get. So there was really, really cool things going on. And then slowly but surely, it just kind of started fading away. I believe the owner's dog died at one point, and at that point, it just went straight to hell. The updates happened less and less frequently to the site, so there weren't as many new clues being found. And then whenever anyone would bring up things, for example, hey, we paid X amount of money for these monthly mailings, where are they? They would conveniently write into the story, into the plot, that, oh, the post office got broken into and the mail got stolen. That's why you're not getting it.
Wow, that sounds lame.
Yep. So whatever, we kind of all wrote it off. Actually, this is where I met Melissa, who I just talked about with Tension and we've done escape rooms with. So basically I met her through also nerding out about this.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
I broke away from this really quickly simply because I was really working incredibly long hours, and I found that it was too much. It was too much to take on.
Yeah, there was a lot in the beginning.
And I chose to step away from it.
Yeah, so in one way I paid, $60 or whatever to get Melissa as a friend. And so I guess that makes Melissa kind of a friend prostitute in a weird way. So whoever wants to be friends with Melissa, you can give her $60. No, just kidding. But anyway, so whenever something like that would happen, they would write into the plot. It's like, oh, we got robbed and blah, blah, blah. And so currently it's been probably about 6 months since a real update has happened.
Wow.
And this was something that was supposed to be ongoing. There were supposed to be events almost every month and things like that. I was on Facebook I was reading another group. And I randomly saw someone post about the original article from LAist about this game. And the creator chimed in. He's like, oh, we're in the break or the hiatus of the first half or something like that. Well, the next half is going to be awesome. And, basically saying it's not over. And that just rubbed me the wrong way, because you have this group of fans that are actually participating and you can't even update us in the group. And so I screenshot that conversation, and
I just want to clarify. You're telling me that they didn't update the core group, but they posted somewhere else that the whole event was on hiatus?
Yep. That's why
holy crap, that's lame.
That's why we were pissed. Like, as soon as I saw that, I hit up Melissa I screenshot that and I posted it in the actual Lost Tears of Cali group, and I said something along the lines that's definitely not sarcastic. Oh, it'd be cool if, since we're the fans, you would have updated us since we're the ones involved. Or, I said something along those lines. The creator never responded, but the next day, a newspaper article, because one of the things they used to get information out is they created these fake newspapers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, a fake newspaper was created basically saying the owner skipped town. Yep.
So is this over?
Who knows? It just says they skipped town with the money and stuff like that. And it was basically like an FU. Like, that's how I took it, is like, hey, we know you supported us early on and got people involved, but screw you guys. Like, haha. Like, that's how I took it. And so doing tension and seeing how well and how smooth something can, like this can run, having that happen and having something as lame as like, oh, we can just write it out of the plot. Like, it's just dumb. Like, if we paid tension money for something and it didn't come through and then they blamed it on the Sentinel hacking it and taking our funds, like, that's like kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's not how you run something. It's like, so now, like, I mean, the person that is behind Lost Years of Cali like owns bars or designs bars or something, but it's like, your name is mud to me now. Like, I'm not going to support you, and I know other people that are involved that saw that post, they're not going to support you anyway. So you just screwed over your fans who have supported you for almost a year, and this is how you treat them. Like, that's cool. Like, that's a good way to do business. Whatever.
Wow. I like I said, I stepped away from this early on, and partially because I wasn't as intrigued by the puzzles as you were. It didn't speak to me personally, and I know it did you. To hear that this is what it developed into is so disappointing.
Yeah. And you know, here's some advice. If anyone's listening to this and they're going to start, whether it be an ARG or anything, be a man, and if you screw up, say it. People are going to respect you a lot more than trying to play it off like part of the plot. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, yeah.
Oh, dude. And also, I'm going to add to that goes to the haunt world too.
Yeah.
Because you and I have had some really bad, horrifically unpleasant customer service issues with some haunts, which we've been very respectful on this podcast and respectful in real life about, you know, not trashing them, but yes, absolutely.
But I think there's a fine line there, because yes, we've been respectful and we've had issues, but when we talk about them, we're talking about a specific haunt. We're not talking about our past. We're not talking about the history. But this culminating up into what it is now, I think needs to be said. And that's why I'm saying everything that I'm saying. You know, with the customer service issues with other haunts, like, yeah, it happened. And if we had the podcast at that time, we would have definitely talked about it. But there's no point to rehash the past if there's no reason to, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
So yeah, so that's it. If you see anything for Lost Years of Cali, I would say don't waste your time, because you're probably going to end up really frustrated like me right now. If they do something, good luck. I hope you actually can pull it off and don't leave people hanging for 6 months and then writing a BS newspaper article about it. But, you know, whatever. It's your life.
Okay, moving on to the next topic.
I finally did the Starlit Killer at Captured LA.
Excellent.
And you had done that a couple weeks ago with our friend Ben, and gave your review, and it was really fun.
Yeah, there's something about the puzzles in that room that I thought were really, really fun.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, I say this about every escape room, and I know I'm repeating myself every podcast, but just the fact that there's still new puzzles that you look at and it's like, I have no idea how to solve this. You know, you think you see everything and you don't. And
are you referring to the one on the wall?
No, the one on the desk. Yeah.
You had to use a prop to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one gave us quite a challenge.
Because it's one of those things like, oh, I really have to do something. Like, not just look, or, you know, it reminds me of The Fan and that other one.
Oh.
The Fan.
We had an encounter with a rotating fan in an escape room that we didn't quite understand how to proceed with. So,
but it was great. It was a 40s themed room, and we had to get out before we got killed. And I mean, you talked about a bunch of this on the last podcast, so I'll try not to repeat. But yeah, like, there was really cool puzzles. We did escape. Woo!
Yeah, which we almost did but failed. But there were only 2 of us in the room at the time. So
yeah, one of the things that started really working well is the room. We did the room with actually Melissa. Melissa, you're like the co-star of this of this podcast, and her and Brandon, and it was his birthday, so happy birthday, belated birthday. and her husband and their friends and Jake and Debbie. But once you have kind of like that crew that you do quite a few escape rooms with, you kind of gel with each other, and for example, in this one, Melissa and Debbie found something with books, and I really don't know because I didn't do that one, but it's like they just instantly, bam, we're working on this together, and they did it and they solved it. And then Jake and I worked on something, and then James and Brandon were working on something else, and we all split up into our separate rooms, and it's really awesome to see that how much experience helps with escape rooms. I mean, I know in the last podcast we talked about the zombie escape and how it was our first one back a few years ago, and how we really didn't know what we were doing, and seeing that and then comparing it to where we are now, it's night and day. It's awesome. It's crazy.
It's really fun, and we've talked about numerous escape rooms on this podcast, and I always think that there's such a good time and such a fun thing to share with friends. Because even if you get frustrated, whether or not you escape or not, it is a really good time to do something with friends that it requires you to communicate and interact and play.
Yeah, and this is this was a real fun one for me.
I'm glad to hear that, because it's not necessarily the immersive environment that really gets you in that room. It's the combination of the puzzles. And I think last time you hadn't done it, but I said that it's an interesting room in the fact that you will find that like 3 or 4 of the puzzles are linear, but the solution to that is part of the nonlinear sense of the room. Mm-hmm. And I'm particularly thinking there's things hanging on the wall in this room that you then have physical items in the room that relate to the order of things as they appear, and you have to deal with them and place them in certain positions in the room. And we had so much fun with that, and immediately, because I kept finding the physical items, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what to do with them. It was like, I know this is important. It has to be important, otherwise I wouldn't have it in my hand right now. And then finally, when we got everything we needed to get, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I really like that. And the puzzle, which I mentioned last podcast that we had a really tough time with, was it involved basically a recipe that you had to figure out. And that was the one that really threw us. And it sounds like you guys figured that out fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm. We're smart. Actually, everyone else is smart. I just play along. I'm a part of it.
I consider you smart. But that was the one that threw us, and I think because we didn't realize how many different things in the room we needed to solve the puzzle at the same time. It was a really, really interesting puzzle. I really enjoyed that room a lot.
Well, I have good news for you.
Yes.
So not a lot of people know this because it's not on their website, but they actually have a second room open.
Oh, it is open.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we are so going back.
And it is called Midnight Stalker.
We are so going back.
And apparently it has more I think the gentleman said more ciphers and things like that rather than puzzles. Oh, so crap. It's right up your alley.
Crap. I will give it my best shot.
But I'm really excited to try that, because if it's anything like Starlit Killer...
Yeah, because you're a cipher god.
No. But seriously, if it's like Starlit Killer, if it's even half as good, I'm there.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to do it.
Besides
Absolutely.
The fact it's called Midnight Stalker, that sounds a little more dark.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. It's not on their website yet. If you want to book that room, you can book it. You just have to call them. And you can find their phone number on their website, which is captured-la.com. Or go to their Facebook, Captured Entertainment, their Instagram, Captured_LA, and their Twitter, Captured LA. One word. Another thing that I've done recently is the Virtual Escape Quest. This was very, very interesting. They're beta testing it, so we were able to go. Russell was supposed to join us, but he had to work, but he ended up coming a little bit later, so he can give you the 5 minutes that he was there with us. It's run by the same company that does Trapped in a Room with a Zombie. And actually, we had the zombie from our escape room on our team, which was a real surprise. It was pretty fun. He's a funny dude. What you do is they give you an iPad, and you have a quest to do. It's basically a scavenger hunt with an iPad, and you have to collect crystals. And once you collected a crystal, more crystals would open up. It's very, very video gamey, where you have to do this task, and then more tasks would open up to you. And they give you a bag of supplies, props, things you need for the quest. And you have this, I don't know what it's called. It's basically one of those, there's a design, and when you point the iPad on it, something pops up. So a little gnome would pop up and tell us like, oh, you need to do this or find this. And it was really cool. It's a really, really good use of technology. Because they're beta testing it and we did it at night, it's very flubby, because the iPad needs light to see through its camera. So a lot of the times we had to use our iPhones or our phones' camera lights in order for the iPad to recognize it and see. A lot of times it took a little bit more time for it to come up just because of the clunkiness of technology, and if other things are running, you know how that goes. But overall, it was really fun. It was a fun scavenger hunt. It's not so much an escape room because there's not really anything to escape. The cool thing is that since we did it at night and the location was Grand Park Fountain, that fountain was all lit up and it was really pretty, and we got to run around there and be near water and just hang out outside. It wasn't hot, and it was just kind of a perfect night. It was really fun. I mentioned earlier Russell was supposed to be on our team, but he had to work. He did end up coming a little later. So based on what you saw, what did you think?
Actually, you pointed to the points that I wanted to make about it, and I ended up having to work late that night. And when I showed up, the first things that struck me was it is a little bit like an escape room because of the tasks that you were doing. The location is really cool. It was fun. You were outside at night. You've pointed to all of the things that what I saw I liked, and I would like to go back and experience it after the beta test phase to see what it develops into. Absolutely.
So those were the beta tests. I believe what they said they're going dark for maybe a few weeks before they do a launch and sell tickets publicly. But if you want to follow along, you can go to virtualrealityquests.com. They do have a Facebook page. Just search for Virtual Reality Quests. It's a really strange URL. There's a lot of numbers after the Virtual Reality Quest, so it's probably just easier to search for it. And the website looks like it's still being developed. The links to the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are still the default when you start a new website through WordPress, I believe. So just go to the website and sign up for their email, and you can get information about that when they open. And I also want to mention that this is the first of a trilogy. So there's 2 other parts that happen after this one, and those are going to be inside, and it's going to be a continuing story. And since we escaped, and there's one thing towards the end that you need to unlock, and if you unlock that and you do it within a certain amount of time, you may or may not get something to keep for future events. So that's all I'm going to say. So make sure you have your thinking caps on. And that part is definitely escape room-like, what you have to do at the end. I don't know where it comes into play because they said they're not going to announce it. So I might have just ruined it. So I apologize. But make sure you try to get something at the end and bring it with you if you do the next 2 installments, because apparently that will unlock something really cool.
Something which I did this past weekend, which Mike, you did not attend, is Monsterpalooza. Monsterpalooza is a con, something which caters to a lot of many different artists. It is, you can tell by the name Monsterpalooza that it is very heavy on the creature effects. There's many makeup studios, makeup artists who have booths and are offering everything from tutorials and classes and workshops to panels about aspects of makeup, monster creation. It covers a very wide range of topics. They quite often feature things about classic Universal monsters or film monsters of the past. There is an amazing museum at Monsterpalooza each time they hold this event, featuring really beautiful pieces of art, fine art developed by people who work in the industries of creating creatures and makeup effects. The show floor is filled with everything from film studio professionals who brought everything from props. Like, there were a lot of props this time from some of the upcoming Marvel projects. It was a fascinating sort of bazaar of vendors. That some of it is about the art, some of it is about product. You don't have the Mike and I kind of joked last time about you go to some of these events and you get jewelry makers and things like that. This is more of an industry professional level sort of vibe. So you got a lot of high-end art. You get a lot of high-end pieces. You know, just the talk of Monsterpalooza was apparently Guillermo del Toro was there Friday night and basically went on a huge buying spree. It's a really enjoyable convention, but it is something that I think is aimed more toward collectors than just, you know, like people who are looking to buy something for their home. However, there is that stuff to be had as well. And the cool thing about Monsterpalooza, every year that I have gone, and I think this is my third, the cosplay stuff is so much fun and so amazing because it's almost all creature-oriented or monster-oriented. So the cosplay stuff is very, very high-end. We saw several full-blown like creatures running around on all fours through the crowd. Lots of photo opportunities to take with some of the creatures. They stop and mingle in as you're roaming the floor. So the other thing about Monsterpalooza, which in the past has always been an issue, is they used to be at the Marriott out by the Burbank Airport, which is a fine venue for a con, absolutely. But Monsterpalooza outgrew it very rapidly, and they have moved to the Pasadena Convention Center this year, and it was a huge improvement. And numerous people that I talked to on the floor remarked about how much better it was at the Pasadena Convention Center, because in previous years they literally had to stop admitting people because it became so crowded that you literally couldn't move on the floor. So they solved that problem by moving to a bigger space. This was a much better con for them. I think it was much more successful. And I'm not just saying that in my own opinion. I talked about that with several other people on the floor. And actually, one of the people, I want to give a quick shout out to Parks and Cons. Sean and Carmel over at Parks and Cons, they have a podcast. They are a very active presence on Instagram, and I want to point to them for a very specific reason. When they go to parks or conventions, they very deliberately post extensively on Instagram. So if you are unable to attend a con, Parks and Cons, if they are there, that is a really good in for you to know about, because they post so many images on Instagram anytime that they visit an event that it really is a good guide for you if you are unable to make the con. And really quickly, their website is parksandcons.com. Instagram and Twitter both at Parks and Cons. Follow them on Instagram if you like the con scene or theme parks. Anytime that they're at some place, they're a really good presence because they are very active about posting images of what's going on around them. Sean and Carmel are really cool people. Like, they really enjoy what they're into, and it shows through what they post.
I had heard through the internet, just from people posting, that it was still really, really crowded. But you said it wasn't? What do you think? I mean, obviously a lot of people were there and it was nowhere near like cram-packed as it was at Burbank, but
yes, I would say that it was crowded, but the crowd flow was much easier to control. There was a little bit of an issue at one area on the crowd floor because they did the very odd thing that rather than it just being row after row after row of booths, in the middle of the floor, they suddenly did sort of a hashtag section where suddenly the traffic flow had to turn 90 degrees to go through the vendors and the exhibitors. That caused a bit of a problem. And there were a couple areas on the floor where they obviously didn't quite get it wide enough. So yeah, but compared to what had gone on previous, like literally I spoke with someone who I asked about his wife, because when you see him, quite often she's present as well. And he said she refused to come back after the last Monsterpalooza that she went to because of the overcrowding.
Right. That's one of the reasons I stopped going.
Yeah, it's understandable because when they were at the other venue, it was horrible.
So my other question, and one of the other reasons I didn't go, is usually these cons, at least to me, seem like just a horror swap meet that you have to pay $30 to get into. Like, did you get that feeling? Is it any different?
I think the difference with Monsterpalooza is the eye candy at Monsterpalooza is so high quality. So yes, it has a little bit of that vibe to it, but the exhibits, the displays, the maquettes, the models, the film prop pieces that are in the museum, they are the best. They are the top industry standards. So yes to your comment, but I think the difference here is that the quality of what they show at Monsterpalooza is so high that it is absolutely worth a visit. But and the other thing that I will say is their other reputation is bad lines, that they don't process people into the event very quickly. And I think they had a little bit of an issue with that again this year. I was not affected by it. When I showed up, the will call line, I had bought tickets in advance online, so I got in very quickly. I met a friend, Jennifer from Evil Twin Studios was there as well. She had to wait like 5 minutes in a line when she got there. So I think they're improving some of that. Yes, it was crowded. They had a little wankiness on the floor here and there just from the layout of the floor, but it was such an improvement over anything that I've been to before with them.
So for someone like me and someone like your friend's wife, the reasons we didn't go, would you say you should go and give it a shot?
I think you should give it another chance. Absolutely.
Cool.
So for the website information for Monsterpalooza, and I checked, they don't seem to have announced dates for Son of Monsterpalooza, which is usually closer to the fall. But if you go to monsterpalooza.com, on Facebook, if you do a search for Monsterpalooza, it immediately comes up. At Twitter, they are Monsterpalooza followed by the number 1. So Monsterpalooza 1 for Twitter. And at Instagram, they are at Monsterpalooza Official, all one word. And also, if you check them out online, you will see some of the images of a lot of the creature stuff that's around the con. I really enjoyed it. And then I also mentioned earlier that I went directly from Monsterpalooza to meeting up with some friends, and I went to go visit Sinister Point. They were doing Seance one more time. Now, if you listen to a previous podcast, Seance is a show which they opened, I believe, in February. And they decided to close it down after the first weekend because there was a lot of confusion as to patrons were showing up expecting one show and getting something completely different. The show didn't work very well when I saw it in earlier this year. So this was what they did is they basically said, we're canceling the rest of the show, and if you came to it, we'd like you to come back and experience it a second time after we retool it and reopen it. Or they offered you a ticket to some other Sinister Point event, which you know, mad props to Sinister Point for realizing that they did have an issue with that show. It was not very good, the original version. It was very, very disappointing. Somewhere between disappointing and the worst haunt event I have ever paid money for in my entire life. Somewhere in between there.
Wow.
And seriously, I'm not exaggerating that. It was horrible. I was excited. I've said this before on this podcast. The turn of the century spiritualism movement in this country is something that I find really interesting. So the idea of going to a seance, which my impression was that this was going to be along those lines, of what the spiritualists were doing around the turn of the century in this country. And basically, that's sort of what it is, except updated to a haunt vibe. The new version of Seance is a really good time. I think they were still working out a couple of kinks. We had a little minor sound glitch issue during the middle of our Seance, which they completely dealt with and overcame very rapidly. I'm not going to be giving spoilers when I talk about this because coming up on May 6th and 7th, there are tickets available. They're doing 3 shows a night on May 6th and 7th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. If you're interested, you can go to sinisterpoint.com, click on dates and times, and you'll be able to buy tickets. Now, what you get from this show is you basically come in and you attend a seance. And the first part of the show is a very sort of casual introduction as to who the medium is, what her purpose in holding this particular seance is, and you actually meet some of the people who you were sitting around the table with. There's a bit of a question and answer session. So this starts out very casually. It is actually interesting to talk to the other people around the table, and she asks for your actual opinions of ghosts and the spirit world, and if you've ever encountered anything. And she sort of ties that into the story of the room and the seance that you're about to sit through. When the seance actually begins, and you do the classic holding of hands, forming a circle of protection, there is an assistant in the room assisting the medium who does various things to help protect us. I will say that it escalates very quickly once the seance gets underway. This is definitely much more intense than the earlier version of this show. It escalates where the spirits make themselves known. There is extreme darkness at times, and I will say they did a really good job of introducing something into the room at one point that made everyone in the circle uncomfortable, and then they turned the lights out, and at that point that you are not alone in the room and that there's something moving toward you, each and every one of you. And it is truly a creepy achievement. And from there, it just escalates faster and faster. Things are moving around the room. Like I said, I don't want to give away too much, but I will say this. I was at the midnight show, which they claim the midnight shows are a little bit more intense. There were a few of us at the table who were not able to maintain the circle and were not able to even maintain our seats. And at the very end, let's say there was some blood, let's say there was some very uncomfortable moments inside the very climax of the seance. I really enjoyed this. It was like a good little mini haunt experience in the middle of the off season. So, if you're interested in the seance vibe sort of thing, I think the show will be very, very enjoyable. If you want a classic haunt jump scare sort of thing, this may not be up your alley. But if the seance aspect of it, that storyline appeals to you, I definitely recommend giving this a shot.
It sounds like this is pretty much night and day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The first one sounded more of a magic show, and this sounds more like a haunt.
Absolutely. I actually, thank you for putting it that concisely, because I didn't. It's a night and day difference. It's this was definitely had much more of a haunt vibe to it, and the other one was sort of an awkward magic show. And it's funny because there's something in the room that I looked at, and again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I looked at it and I went, okay, I know this is going to be utilized somewhere in the show, but I never saw how it is used coming. It completely, and it is the biggest scream during the show. Like, everyone at the table just lost it when that prop came into play, because there's a lot of it's an area where there's a lot of darkness and the lights are flickering, and then something happens involving that prop that just literally knocked everyone back away from the table because it took you so much by surprise. And it's definitely an improvement. I found it very interesting that story-wise, they sort of utilized the same ending from the previous version that they decided to shut down and retool. And I talked to someone afterwards that didn't actually get that plot point. They didn't understand that plot point had occurred, because when we were talking about the shows, like, well, did you get this? Did you understand this? Like, oh, we missed that. And so I still think they're just like working out some of the timing maybe of certain things, but I definitely got it, and a couple of other people definitely understood. And I want to say it's basically how one of the spirits makes their presence known. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad I went back and saw it again.
Good.
I did mention the sinisterpoint.com is the web address for Sinister Point. At Instagram, follow them at Sinister Point, and at Twitter, it's also at Sinister Point. On Facebook, you can do a search for Official Sinister Point Haunted Attraction. If you search Sinister Point's Curiosities, you'll also see that they have a nice little shop of the Bazaar, which you can purchase some really cool items at. But it will also get you to the information for Seance, and like I said, tickets are available for the first weekend in May.
And don't forget, there's an E at the end of point.
Absolutely. Sinister Point, Pointe. I would like to mention something. After we went through the seance and we were talking afterwards, it was very funny that somebody approached me and said, like, wait a minute, I just figured out you're Russell from the My Haunt Life podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you for listening. And he goes, well, I tweeted you. And so I said, well, wait, okay, well, which tweet were you? And he said, I want to thank you for turning me on to Borrowed Time LA. And My Haunt Life got a tweet from Sean R., is what he's known as. And we had talked in an earlier podcast, I believe it was podcast 8, where we talked about a sort of hidden location magic show called Borrowed Time LA. And he came up and he said, I really want to thank you for talking about that on the podcast because, we went and we had such a great time. It was an amazing show. And I just want to thank you. And he complimented us for pointing to things that he was unaware of. And he wanted to thank me for Borrowed Time LA. And thank you, Sean R., for listening. It was very nice to meet you. So glad we spent some time in the dark together, and so glad we got bloody together. It was a good time. But we were talking last night, and it reminded me that Borrowed Time LA is actually still going. And I would like to point out one more time, if you like magic, and Mike, I think you'll agree with me that this is worth the ticket price.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So Borrowed Time LA is sort of a hidden location magic show, and it features a magician by the name of, I hope I get this right, Helder Guimarães. Mm-hmm. And if you go to borrowedtime.la for the website, or he has a Facebook page under his name, Helder Guimarães, which is Guimares. You can follow him on Twitter at whoishelder, Helder, and at Instagram, InstaHelder. And seriously, if you enjoy magic, he has extended the run of his show. The original run of it sold out completely. There are shows selling out now, but there are tickets available, and he's extended dates into May. We highly recommend this show. Sean R. highly recommends this show. And Sean told me, Mike, that he usually listens to the podcast. He's doing things like doing the dishes and doing things around the house. So
we make time go by quicker.
Yes, My Haunt Life, the podcast, making your everyday tasks more enjoyable.
Podcast for dishwashing.
But thank you so much for Sean R. for approaching me last night and saying hello. We so appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the show as well last night.
Actually, did you see his other tweet where he's like, damn, Russell from My Haunt Life is a dick?
You see, I told you. I haven't been on social media all day, so no, I didn't. I missed that one.
I'm just kidding. And Sean, thank you again. I was the one that responded to you, so thank you for tweeting. It means a lot. There's a couple conventions coming up. One's at the end of July, and the other's at the beginning of August. Scare LA, which is August 6th and 7th, and Midsummer Scream, which is July 30th and 31st. Scare LA, it's going into its 4th year, and it's second at the Pasadena Convention Center. And Midsummer Scream is new this year, and that's going to be at the Long Beach Convention Center.
The interesting thing about these conventions this year, Scare LA is going into, its 4th year, Mike?
Yep.
And we've been each year. Scare LA has been very successful. This year, Midsummer Scream is a new convention, but what has happened is some of the staff members from Scare LA and people that we've interacted with at Scare LA in the past have decided to branch out and start their own convention, which is Midsummer Scream, and that's the one being held at the Long Beach Convention Center. So far, it seems that Midsummer Scream is focusing on the haunt community, the Halloween season, and that sort of vibe. Scare LA seems to be, they haven't announced a lot of what is on their agenda this year, so we don't quite know what the focus of Scare LA is yet. We don't know if it's going to be similar to what they've done in the past, or if they might be branching into a new direction. But there's 2 Halloween, haunt, and horror conventions right in the middle of summer to partake in.
We are so spoiled.
Yes, I will agree with that. So, and again, our recommendation would be to check out the websites and the Facebook pages for each of these as you figure out like who will be appearing at each of these conventions and sort of the vibe of each of the conventions and how they shape up.
Yeah, one of the big selling points for me for Scare LA in the past have been that they offered classes. And these classes and workshops were taught by home haunters and things like that. It looks like they're still going to have classes. We just don't know what the classes are and who's going to be teaching them and things like that. Whereas Midsummer Scream, it sounds like they're going to have a haunt zone, and with some of the haunted houses and the haunts in the area are going to be setting up kind of like last year at Scare LA, which was awesome. There was a scare zone, and it was fantastic.
We're looking forward to see what each of these conventions has to offer, how they're different, and how they're similar.
Once we get more information, we'll let you know. But either way, can't wait, and it's going to be awesome. So if you want to find out more information, Midsummer Scream, again, is July 30th and 31st. Their website is midsummerscream.org. And then their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is Midsummer Scream. Scare LA, August 6th and 7th. And that website is scarela.com. Facebook, Scare LA Con. Instagram, Scare Los Angeles. And also their Twitter is Scare Los Angeles.
And we should mention that tickets are on sale for both of these events already.
Right, and they both have discounts, so get on it while you can.
Yeah, definitely. Highly recommend buying early for each of these events because they are offering discounts if you buy early. Next up, we should also offer an update on something which is sort of near and dear to my heart, mainly because it involves me. The Blackout Experiments is the documentary about the immersive theater piece Blackout. The documentary premiered at this year's Sundance Film Festival. Well, they recently made the announcement that they have received distribution, and it will be being released much sooner than I think anyone expected. They have decided that it's going to be released in the middle of summer. Their release date so far that they have announced is July 8th will be the release date. And I spoke recently to Rich Fox, the director of the documentary. He couldn't give me specific details. I believe they're still being worked out. But what it looks to be is that there will be several major cities in the U.S. where the Blackout Experiments documentary will receive some theatrical distribution, and it's going to hit video on demand at the same time, which is a more common format now to release smaller independent films. So on July 8th, you should be able to check out the Blackout Experiments documentary. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I actually appear in the documentary. I'm interviewed several times throughout the course of the film, and you get to see me actually go through some of the Blackout off-season shows, and you get to see me and a couple of other people experience the horror that is Blackout.
And then you'll probably never listen to this podcast again after seeing Russell in that.
So I would like to say one thing, and Mike, I know you and I have talked about spoilers on this podcast a couple of times. I would recommend people avoid reviews of the Blackout Experiments documentary because several of the more recent reviews that came out after the Sundance Film Festival this year actually contain spoilers. And it seems odd to be warning people about spoilers for a documentary, but believe it or not, there are some surprises along the way for those of us being interviewed in the Blackout Experiments. There are some twists and turns to the stories that are told. And the final act of the documentary, there is sort of a surprise that unfolds. And I would suggest you not read reviews for the documentary because a couple of the reviews comment on how that develops. And I would say if you don't like spoilers, avoid reviews for it. I'm looking forward to it finally getting out there. Numerous people have contacted me since the Sundance Film Festival asking questions if they saw it at Sundance. The Q&As at Sundance were fascinating. Lots of people asked some really entertaining and interesting questions about it. I got into some really interesting conversations about how you can use immersive theater or something else in your life to explore, to find out more about yourself. And I think that's the core of the documentary, is what people get out of this exploration. So on July 8th, some in major cities, a theatrical release of some kind for the Blackout Experiments documentary, and dropping on video on demand on July 8th as well. You can find the Blackout Experiments by searching Facebook for the Blackout Experiments. They are on Twitter at BlackoutDoc and on Instagram at Blackout Experiments. But I must say that the Instagram is pretty inactive for Blackout Experiments so far. Hopefully that'll kick up a notch closer to the release of the documentary. The website is theblackoutexperiments.com, and they just recently did an update where they uploaded some really short video clips from the documentary, some really interesting images, and there are also more still photos. When you get to the main page, I believe in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a Enter Website tab, and that'll take you to some of the media coverage, some stills from the film, and it was very funny because I did not know that the website had been updated, and Mike sent me a text. And do you remember what the text said?
Yep.
Please let the audience know.
That image of you on the website is terrifying.
Are you referring to the one where I'm standing up?
There's only one that's terrifying.
Okay, all right.
I'm not. Yeah.
Well, there's two that are terrifying to me personally, but
Right.
yeah. So, but yes,
one of them is part of the video.
So, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I
Yeah.
figured you meant. And it's funny because Mike sent me that text, and I didn't know that the website had updated. So I was like, oh crap, what did they post? And I immediately went to the website, and you're right. That was, it's a really disturbing moment. It is a truly disturbing moment.
Yep.
And
you mentioned people reaching out to you after they see it. And I would just like to tell the listeners that after you see it, if you like to email the movie star Russell, his email is russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's. Ask him about anything. Ask him about life. Ask him about Blackout. Ask him about stuff.
okay.
Ask him for an autograph.
So, yes, I am very approachable. Obviously, if I've been on a Scarelay panel about extreme haunts, I am willing to usually discuss, but I try to avoid revealing explicit details of some of the things that have gone on inside of Blackout. However, the documentary reveals a fair amount of what they've done in the past, and I doubt they will repeat it after the documentary comes out for sure. So it should be interesting to see what the reaction is. Looking forward to people seeing it.
We wanted to mention a new show that's going to be happening in May. May 19th through the 22nd, Screenshots Productions / What We Learned Here has a new show called Shoshin.
Shoshin is spelled Shoshin, and according to the website, Shoshin is an outdoor, real-world explanation of the self, illustrating the power of the mind and the awe and wonder of existence through a 90-minute journey towards enlightenment. And they're specifically citing the inspiration from Suzuki's Zen Mind and Beginner's Mind, which is a well-known book on Zen meditation, and Joanna Newsom's album Divers. Joanna Newsom is a musical artist that is apparently influenced this show. So if you want to research the inspirations, you can do a search on that. This looks to be an interesting show. Tickets are available at the website. We don't know much more about this show other than that description, which I just read directly from the website.
Right. And Screenshot Productions also did Parturition, which you had done a couple months ago.
Correct.
And Fear is What We Learned Here.
Which both of us have done.
Yeah.
Based on that description, my impression is that it's not really a haunt vibe in any way. It seems to be sort of a new age approach to a show. The fact that it's a 90-minute show is interesting to me. The fact that it supposedly takes place outdoors, apparently, is interesting to me. Not sure if I'm going yet or not. I haven't made that decision. The ticket price is $85, so that is a steep ticket price. I'm not. I need to learn a little bit more about the show.
Right. Yeah, and just from the description, I like that they're doing something. I like that someone is doing something in an off season and they're putting their own twist on it. But yeah, it doesn't sound like something I would be into. So I don't think I'll be going to this, but I wish them the best of luck, and I hope it does awesome. Because I think we need more people doing their own thing. Obviously, I'm more into haunts and extreme haunts and things like that. Whether or not I'm into it or not into it, it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that people are out there creating something that they want to do. If you want more information on this show, go to screenshot.productions or whatwelearnedhere.com. On Instagram, What We Learned Here.
And their Instagram is fascinating to follow. Highly recommend following them on Instagram. Since Mike just gave you the website information, we'd also like to mention that go to their website. They have basically a subscription service that they are going to try, and you can read about that on their website and learn more information about paying quarterly. And there's a lot of information about a business setup offering multiple shows throughout the year. So we recommend you go directly to the website and find out more information about that. Another upcoming event, which we have talked about in the past and we highly recommend, Zombie Joe's Underground Theater is bringing back Urban Death in a new version. So that starts on April 29th, runs into the month of May. If you search for Urban Death on Facebook, there is an event page dedicated to this new Urban Death that's opening on April 29th. And if you look for Zombie Joe's Underground Theater Group, you'll find a Facebook page for them as well. Look up zombiejoes.com for the official website, which will get you to purchase tickets. On Instagram, it's @ZombieJoes, and at Twitter, it is @ZombieJoes. Again, Mike and I have attended numerous Urban Deaths in the past. We really speak highly of Zombie Joe's Underground Theater. Definitely looking forward to the Urban Death that's coming up.
We're just about wrapped up with this podcast, but there's a couple things we wanted to mention and give a couple shout outs. On myhauntlife.com, I have created a Los Angeles escape room map. So if you're into escape rooms and you're looking for one, it's mobile friendly. It tells you how far away it is from you currently and all those fun things. And it lists all of the escape rooms in LA and North Orange County. So to go to that, go to myhauntlife.com/Los Angeles. Go to myhauntlife.com/Los-Angeles-escape-rooms, and you'll see that, or just go to the site and click on escape rooms, which is probably easier than typing that in, and you might type in Losh somehow. You can laugh, Russell. Just go ahead.
Okay.
But anyways, but you'll see a lot of escape rooms in LA. So if you're visiting or bored, just look it up and go. There's still a ton that we haven't done that we need to. So yeah, so check it out. Also on Facebook, we started a Extreme Haunts group. You can tell by some of the past podcasts and the things we've done, and like Victim Experience, how we're the only people that have done it twice.
Just saying
that we love our Extreme Haunts. So there wasn't an Extreme Haunts group on Facebook, so we started it. If you go to facebook.com/groups/Extreme Haunts, you can join. It's pretty much our circle of friends right now, until word gets out. And so the conversation is basically based mostly on things that we've done or are local to us here in LA, like the Victim Experience and Blackout.
It can also cover various topics. Already people have touched on things along the lines of how certain extreme haunts are run, and things like that have come up in some of the comments already.
Right. So if you're into that, join. Just go there and join. We'll add you. It's for everybody. We'd love to get some people from all over the country that are involved in extreme haunts and give us their stories and tell us about the haunts they go to, because when you live in one area, you don't really get to hear about anything else. So it'd be really cool to expand that and let everyone know about everything else that's out there. And finally, I want to end this podcast with giving some shout outs. Thank you again, everybody that listens. And I wanted to specifically shout out a couple people. Kristen at the El Paso Horror Society, thank you so much for your comment. That's awesome. And she has a podcast as well called El Paso Horror Society. And you can listen to them, find them on iTunes. You can find them on Facebook at El Paso Horror Society, and on Instagram, EP Horror Society, as well as Twitter. And also wanted to give a shout out to thescarefactor.com. That's the website. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are The Scare Factor. And they gave us a nice email that they enjoyed listening to the podcast of the site. And if you go to their site, it's pretty awesome what they're doing for the community. They're
And very ambitious. Like, hats
yeah.
off to them for really trying to form a community.
totally. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to list, or they are listing everything in every state. They're getting reviews from everyone in every state about haunts they go to. So it's basically a one-stop shop for the United States haunts of America, I guess you could say.
And for like, and you know, we've talked in the past about how the fact that, you know, we hit up Vegas and San Francisco. If you are in an area of the country where you have to travel to do haunts, this, I think, quickly could become a resource for a lot of people in a lot of different areas in the country to find out what is nearby them.
Exactly. So thank you guys. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please hit us up, tweet us at myhauntlife. You can email us at mike@myhauntlife.com or russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's. And before I sign off, I would just like to say that in the last podcast, we had Team Snickers or Team Kit Kat. And I would just like to say Team Snickers by a landslide. People like Snickers way better than Kit Kats. And I told you. And I don't know why you didn't listen. But
Look, I get it. I completely get, like, look, Snickers is this burst of sweetness and gooey goodness, etc. Like, when you bite into it, it's sort of like the slap in the face of snack foods.
If you took what you just said out of context and just played it, this is turning into a different podcast.
So, no, I totally get it. I just, like, I still prefer my Kit Kats because it's more of a I don't know, more of a seductive snack.
What? How are Kit Kats seductive?
Well, it's a thin layer of chocolate luring you in, and then like when you finally get to the point where you bring it up, and then like there's this some like snap of the crisp wafer inside, and it's just it's so much more intriguing than just like the assault that Snickers is.
Intriguing. It has two things. It has chocolate and wafer.
Yeah.
Snickers has nuts, caramel, nougat, chocolate.
It's a little bit of overload.
No.
So, all right. So, look, okay, I admit that Team Snickers won that debate. So, in concession, I'm willing to make a peace offering for you.
Okay, I'm waiting. Put that away. Oh.
I offer you an entire bowl of Snickers, Mike.
And just for people, because you can't see, those are all Snickers.
And by the way, the new Snickers Crisper.
But not the Snickers peanut butter, I noticed.
But you're never satisfied. You're never satisfied.
No, because you know what? Snickers always satisfies.
Oh.
And on that note...
That hurt.
Yeah.
So, this is Russell.
And this is Mike.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. So I know we just signed off, but as soon as we signed off, we had one of the new Snickers Crispers, and Russell wants to fight Snickers now.
No.
Roll.
Basically, it's a whatchamacallit.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
Oh.
And we feel that this is that important that we started back up the recording just to tell you that, because we owe it to you as Team Snickers followers to know that Snickers Crispers are like whatchamacallits.
Buyer beware.
Yeah. And on that note, we're really going to sign off this time.
Oh.
So this is Mike.
I have Kit Kats in the freezer, by the way.
Like I said, and this is Mike.
This is Russell.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye. I had this like vision in my head.
What's in your head, Mike?
You don't want to know.